Reality is a simulation and Jesus knew it, and he tried to warn us, but the church erased it. Sound crazy? Well then ask yourself this. Have you ever wondered if everything that you see, everything you touch could be an illusion? A hologram, a simulation, a cosmic deepfake? Well, Jesus already figured this out 2,000 years ago, and what's even wilder is that modern physics is proving him right. See, today, scientists are discovering that matter doesn't even exist, that everything is just structured information, a projection from a higher reality. But here's the crazy part. An ancient book called The Sophia of Jesus Christ revealed this secret almost 2,000 years ago, and the church was so terrified of what it said that they banned it. So if this world is an illusion, then who built it? And more importantly, how do you escape? And by the end of this video, you'll know. And once you do, you'll never see reality the same way again. The Sophia of Jesus Christ is a book that was likely written in the 1st or 2nd century CE, and the church was not happy. They tried to Control-Alt-Delete this info by banning it and persecuting anyone who had it. But luckily, it was discovered in 1945, buried near the tombs of Egypt. And in this book, Jesus appears not in the flesh, but as pure, blinding light. But who is the Sophia in the Sophia of Jesus Christ? Well, Sophia is the Greek word for wisdom. So this book is called The Wisdom of Jesus Christ. But Sophia is also a goddess of pure light, more powerful than the God of the Bible. So we'll get to that soon, but first, what exactly does this book the church feared so much actually reveal? According to this book, after the crucifixion, Jesus' followers were basically having an existential crisis. The man that they thought was going to bring about a new reality was just dead. Game over. Or so they thought, because something insane happened. According to the Sophia of Jesus Christ, Jesus returned, but not in the way that anyone was expecting, and he was about to reveal that this world is nothing like what it seems. The text says, "The Savior appeared, not in his previous form, but in the invisible spirit, and his likeness resembles a great angel of light. But his resemblance I must not describe. No mortal flesh could endure it, but only pure, perfect flesh." So this was Jesus 2.0, not as a body, but as light, a light that's so pure the average person couldn't even look at him. So why is this important? Well, he wasn't just trying to make a dramatic entrance. Jesus was showing that he basically hacked his way out of the simulation, because reality, it's not made of matter. He was like Neo, free from the Matrix, and his message to the disciples, reality is not what you were told. Now, his disciples, which were 12 men and 7 women, according to this book, gathered around a mountain called Divination and Joy, and they were confused. They had seen Jesus die, but here he was, like an angel of light. And they weren't asking him about love thy neighbor, fish and loaves, or turning the other cheek. They wanted answers. So they straight up asked him, what is the underlying reality of the universe? Now hold on for a minute, pause. Do you notice something different here? This isn't the Bible story they tell you in church. They weren't asking about simple moral lessons or parables. They wanted to know what reality itself actually is. And Jesus, he didn't sugarcoat it. He didn't tell them to just have faith or pray on it. Instead, he hit them with this. I want you to know that all men from the foundation of the world until now, while they have inquired about God, who he is and what he is like, they have not found him. The wisest among them have speculated from the ordering of the world and its movements, but their speculation has not reached the truth. So Jesus was saying that no one has figured this out. Not the greatest philosophers, not the holiest priests, not even that one friend who always thinks they've unlocked the universe after one ayahuasca trip, because they've all been looking in the wrong place. But Jesus wasn't trapped like them because he wasn't from here. He tells them, I, who came from infinite light, am here, for I know him, light, that I might speak to you about the precise nature of the truth. So Jesus is straight up saying that he came from beyond this world, beyond this simulation, this illusion, this prison of a false reality. And then he casually drops this bombshell. I want you to know that everything that exists was brought forth from a single source of infinite light, but the world itself is polluted. So did you catch that? He just said that everything that exists, everything was born from a singularity of infinite light. Do you know how crazy this is? This is a book that's almost 2,000 years old, and Jesus was literally talking about the Big Bang thousands of years before modern science even existed. But Jesus didn't stop there. The world we live in, he's saying it's not real, and that everything comes from light, but the material world is a polluted version of that something greater, purer, that's hidden from us. All right, so maybe you're thinking, okay, but this is all just a bunch of mystical mumbo-jumbo speculation, right? Well, no, it turns out that modern physics has been inching towards the exact same conclusion, except instead of calling it divine revelation, they called it quantum mechanics. Enter David Bohm, who was one of the most influential physicists of the 20th century. He took one look at reality and basically said, yeah, this is all an elaborate light show. Bohm proposed that everything we perceive as solid matter is actually born from light. Sound familiar? Bohm said, light can carry information about the entire universe. Light, by interactions of different rays, produces particles in all the diverse structures of matter. They are ripples on this vast ocean of light. This ocean of energy could be thought of as an ocean of light. Okay, think about that. The universe itself, everything you see, touch, or experience in general, it's not actually solid. It's patterns of condensed and structured light. So if it's all light, then why does it still hurt when you stub your toe? Well, Bohm described matter as frozen light. He said, all matter is a condensation of light into patterns moving back and forth at average speeds, which are less than the speed of light. In other words, everything we call physical is just light pretending to be solid, light that's been slowed down, and this aligns perfectly with what the Gnostic gospel of Jesus was saying thousands of years ago. When Jesus appeared not as a flesh and blood man, but as pure light, he wasn't just trying out a new look because he thought it looked cool. He was showing them that this world, the material world, is an illusion of light. It's part of a structured, interconnected, light-based simulation. And to make this make even more sense, I want to try a quick thought experiment. Imagine a pool of water. Well, the water represents pure light. Now imagine parts of that water freezing into ice. That ice, well, that's like matter. It's still water. It hasn't become something else. It's just a different state of the same fundamental substance. So just like ice is transformed water, matter is transformed light. Reality isn't what it seems. And to begin to see through the illusion is to realize that we were never separate from the light. We are the light. We've just been slowed down, frozen into form, trapped in a dense illusion. But the truth, we've always been part of the infinite source. Now, before we reveal more mind-blowing things that Jesus said in this banned gospel, I want you to understand how reality could be a structured simulation of light. And to do that, let's think about holograms. Now, a hologram is an image that looks real, that looks like it's three-dimensional, but it's actually just structured light. How? Well, it works by manipulating how light waves interact with each other, and it creates an illusion of depth and form. So at its core, a hologram is possible because light behaves like a wave. So when you look at a hologram, your eyes aren't seeing a physical object. Instead, they're seeing a structure of light, and your brain interprets these patterns as three-dimensional form, even though no actual object exists. Now, here's where it gets weird, because the universe is like a giant hologram. What we see as physical is just a reflection of deeper information. In other words, what if physical reality is like a hologram that you can touch and feel? In this Gnostic gospel, Jesus is saying something very similar almost 2,000 years ago. Now, this was not the message the early church wanted people to hear. Jesus was Neo and Morpheus rolled into one. He was standing there basically holding out red pills, trying to break people out of the Matrix. Now, the disciples were still trying to understand what Jesus was revealing. If the world is an illusion, and if everything they've ever known was false, then where was the real truth, and who was God, really? And how could they possibly find him if the wisest people in history weren't able to? Well, Jesus said, since no one rules over him, he has no name, for whoever has a name is the creation of another. So Philip, probably rethinking his entire existence, is trying to understand and asks, Lord, how then did he, the source, appear to the perfect ones? In other words, if no one has ever seen God, if he has no physical form, if he can't even be named, then how can anyone know him? And by the way, that's why calling this source of reality he is already wrong. But since the text uses it, we'll roll with it for now. But in reality, the true God, the source of divine light, is beyond gender, beyond form, beyond anything we can imagine. So Philip had a good question, and Jesus has a great answer. Before anything is visible, the majesty and the authority are in him, since he embraces the whole of the totalities while nothing embraces him. Everything, the entire universe, every star, every soul, every hidden reality, everything exists within this infinite source, and he exists within us. In other words, the source is in everything. So to begin to understand the invisible realm, the hidden realm, it's about beginning to realize that it's in everything visible, everything out there and inside of you. And then Jesus drops a revelation that science is just now catching up to. For he is all mind, and he is thought, and considering, and reflecting, and rationality, and power. They are equal powers. They are the sources of the totalities. Okay, let's break that down. The universe, it's not made of matter, it's not physical, it's thought. It's pure mind. Now wait, hold up. Didn't we just say reality is light? Now we're saying it's mind? So which is it? Both. Here's the crazy part. Light isn't like anything else in the universe. It moves at the absolute speed limit of reality. Nothing can go faster. And here's where it gets weirder. Photons, particles of light, have no mass. And if we imagine reality from the perspective of a photon, it wouldn't experience space. It wouldn't experience time. In other words, light isn't physical. Light isn't matter. Light is mind. And the true God, he's not a king who rules over others. It's pure mind, pure light. Everything we experience is thought made manifest. Light slowed down. Thought and light are actually the same thing. This is a reality of thought, a reality of light, not of matter. Sound crazy? Well, guess what? This aligns perfectly with what some of the greatest minds in physics have discovered.